Well, welcome to the third episode now. Look at us go. Of it's time for the what's the name of the show? It's almost the weekend.
Oh my
no.
god.
I've already ruined it. My
No.
name's Joe.
Embrace the chaos. I'm Daz. And look, I feel like we should kick things off. Last episode we talked about our elevator pitch, and
Yes.
I've got the ultimate technique to come up with something on the air. You know, this is a heralded technique, like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, phase 1 of product design. This is what they do. You feel me?
Yeah, I feel you, man. I'm nervous, but let's go.
All right, so I'm going to say one word and you're going to say the next word, and we're just going to do that until the pitch is done.
Welcome
right.
to the whole episode that will be this.
All right. So I'll kick things off.
Yep.
This
Banana.
is
Pretty
good.
and
This
Ice Cube.
isn't
Actually
a
real.
podcast. There you have it, folks. That's our elevator pitch. I hope you'll tune in for future episodes. So
I watched there's this TikTok account that I started following recently, and it's just these two dudes that I don't know if they pre-write the episodes or what. But there was one recently where they did that, and they were like, it's gonna be funny. We'll do like a little, you say one word, I say the next word thing, and it started off really dumb. And then they were like, "Oh, we'll try again," and they tried again, and they like told this very sad story about like someone losing love and like finding themselves, but not really, like it was.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was very good.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So, apart from listening to melancholic improv, what have you been up to?
Let's see. I caught up with our friend Dom last night, which was pretty cool.
Oh, great.
Yeah, I
went in person?
Yeah.
Sick.
I worked in the city last night, so I went to Thornbury afterwards and had some Umbertos, which was a treat.
Oh my god. Yeah. God, I missed that place.
Yeah, I missed it too. It was nice. It was popping off, man. They were real busy.
Yeah. That new locale they've got there, it just seems to be packed all the time. At least it was, when it opened. I haven't been there since then.
Yeah. They had it all open except for the upstairs. And they were like, yeah, we would like to have the upstairs open, but just with like the corona and everything, it's hard because they have like staff that get, furloughed or whatever. So
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was cool. And then we finished dinner at like 8:30, 8:45, and then I had to journey home, and I arrived home at 11:30.
What the hell? What happened?
No, nothing really. Like I waited, 15 minutes for a tram, and then I waited about 20 minutes for a train, and then I drove home.
Oh my god.
And all the rest of the time was just time spent getting into the city and then getting back out to West.
Right, I see.
Yeah. So between waiting a little bit longer than I should have for a couple of segments of the journey, it really was just the amount of time, like the distance that I traveled.
Yeah, that's quite the voyage.
Yeah, it was very full on. And we went to see, not Dom and I, but after work, my work pals and I went to see the new office that we're most likely going to be renting.
Oh yeah, where's that?
It's just around the corner. It's in the city. Still near Elizabeth Street. What is it? I think it's not Collins. I think it's on Little Collins.
Oh, cool.
Might even be. Yeah, I think it's Little Collins. Yeah, it was really cool. It's much bigger, and yeah, it's on like the 6th floor, and on the 7th floor there's like a rooftop bar.
Oh my god, that's ideal.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So we went to have some beers at the rooftop bar afterwards. It was very, very chill.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, how about you, man? I feel like I just gave you the life story then. I'm normally like, oh yeah, I'm pretty good.
I mean, they are all exciting things. Umberto's is like the best pasta in Melbourne. New office location's gonna have a rooftop bar. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been good. Footy season started, so like, that's something that I can take part in. I can watch it on TV. I can't go to the stadium, which is a bit sad, but like it's still really good to at least feel like I'm a part of something despite being bedridden.
Hmm.
So that's really exciting. Um, and yeah, other than that, not much. Playing Elden Ring.
Hell yeah.
I'm at the last boss, and it's a really good fight. It's just like, you know, I get to eat my words now because the last boss, and as in the last boss I fought, and the boss I'm fighting now are just awesome. They've got
Yeah.
a lot of mechanics that are like original to like jumping and that kind of thing for
Mm.
Elden Ring,
Wow.
and it's really weird that they didn't make more use of these mechanics for other boss fights, to be honest.
Yeah. Right.
But
Wow.
even so, it's awesome. Like, yeah, I feel like we should have like an Elden Ring spoiler cast or something, and just once you've finished it,
Yeah.
we can just talk through everything because I feel like they did a lot right, and I feel like they missed the beat on a lot of things.
Yeah. Right.
Um,
Interesting.
but yeah, this last boss is super fun, and I'm just getting reamed at the moment, so that's a nice change of pace.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah. I haven't had a chance really to play any games this week. I've just been either doing things after work or getting home from work and doing freelance.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it's just been like no time. So hopefully today, after I'm done with chores and various things, yeah, it's gonna be late by the time I get to play Elden Ring tonight. But I will get to it. Excited to get back in.
yeah, cool,
Yeah,
cool,
yeah.
cool. Well, after last week's podcast, we wanted to talk about nostalgia this time around.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of came up, last week, talking about interactive music and that kind of thing. And like for me, this just brought like a lot of ideas into my head straight away.
Yeah.
But one of the prompts you've got here that I love is how nostalgia influences the sort of games that we see made today, and and
Yeah.
and that for me is a huge one, and just like all these IPs come to mind, like Final Fantasy, dude, that entire series is built on like a combat system that has been the same since Final Fantasy 1. You know what I'm saying? Like they've changed it recently to be more like actiony and like real timey, but that
Yeah.
like turn-based combat was a Final Fantasy signature for like, I don't know, 2 decades, 15 years, like a really long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a really interesting thing you bring up. How this might be a little banal or whatever, but what do you define as nostalgia? Because I reckon it's a bit of a loose term that kind of gets bandied around a little bit. But what do you think? What do you think nostalgia is?
I think nostalgia for me is like something from the past that inspires a sense of familiarity.
Mm-hmm.
So like one of the biggest things for me when it comes to nostalgia in video games is like the music, right? Like you like I played Banjo-Kazooie last year, which amazingly holds up, and like it was a really cool experience and like a fun game, but like all the music was super nostalgic for me. Like
Yeah.
it just brought me back to being a kid and like sitting cross-legged on the living room kind of thing. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I think for me it's about like a specific part of the video game kind of bringing you back to when you last played it, I guess.
Yeah.
How would
Yeah.
how would you define it?
I would agree. I would add that there is something pleasant to that memory.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think
Yeah.
nostalgia works mostly around the fact that it is that you remember it fondly. I
Mm.
think that's kind of like the thing that just like, yeah, it's from the past, and it has that sort of like replication in the future part, but it's also kind of needs to be a fond recollection of the thing that you're nostalgic about. Like, I don't know if you could be. Can you be nostalgic about a bad thing? Maybe.
Um, yeah, I think it like it blurs the line, right? Like, if you reminisce about a really fucked up time, I, uh, yeah, it's hard. I don't know. I don't know. That's a great
Yeah.
question. That's way too philosophical for this podcast.
Maybe I'm steering us in a weird direction with this. Like, let's define it first, and then in doing so, we've now just like completely derailed the topic and all the fun stuff we wanted to talk about. Now it's like,
No, I
but what
think
about bad nostalgia?
yeah, no, I think we're all over it. I think it is something
Yep.
that's remembered fondly and like
Yeah.
evokes this sense of familiarity.
Yeah.
But there probably can be bad nostalgia. Maybe it's just like processed in a different way though, like when I can walk again, maybe I'll remember right now when I can't really walk that much, and I'll be like, "Oh man, I remember that time," and like I'm really glad I can walk now, but I'm nostalgic for all that time I had to read books and watch movies,
Yeah.
So like, yeah,
Yeah.
maybe that's kind of the only way I can twist it to turn like bad nostalgia into being a thing.
Yeah. Interesting. That is very profound. I mean, it's in such a way that I struggle to um resonate with it. You know what I mean? Like I hear you and I understand you, but it's like, man.
Oh,
So I've googled nostalgia
oh
while you were
shit!
talking.
Oh, we've got some live research.
We've got okay nostalgia. I'm just gonna turn on my audio and desktop audio just so that you can get this in the recording, okay? Because I reckon it might be a fun thing to have.
Oh yeah, sure, go for
All
it.
right.
Nostalgia.
Okay. Okay. I know, you probably didn't hear that, but you'll hear it in the recording. I've turned off the audio now.
Okay, great. Yeah, I
It
didn't
was,
hear
you know how
shit.
you can press the little button and it's like it gets Google to say the word for you.
Yeah, yeah.
I've gone and done that. Okay, so
Nostalgia.
yeah, that's pretty much it. Nostalgia. A sentimental longing or wistful affection for a period in the past.
Oh, that's beautiful. A wistful affection for a period of the past, because there's
Yeah.
that like childlike sense of like
Mhm.
wonder that like
Yes.
comes back to you. Yeah, that's great. That's great.
From the past. I think that past part is important. And also there's another little window over here saying nostalgia is the sentimentality for the past. Sentimentality, I think, is another good word that was sort of mentioned in the first definition. And then it says typically for a period or place with happy personal associations. So that brings
Okay.
out my little.
So in that case, the framing is a lot more personal. So like
Yeah.
when you look at the prompt, like how nostalgia influences the sorts of games we see made today, like that's a bit harder to answer than
Mhm.
I originally thought, because I guess it's like personal to the creators of the game. So I guess like a pretty good example would be Ukulele.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
Banjo team got together and basically recreated Banjo as a new IP
Yeah.
that, by all accounts, was not as good. I've heard.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently it's not super great.
Yeah.
So I think you can have both personal nostalgia and like generational nostalgia, right? Like
Hmm.
there will be a group of people, basically everyone cognizant on Earth, I think, actually, during the time of the pandemic, who is nostalgic for the time before the pandemic. Like they will have
Mm.
fond memories of life before, right?
Yeah.
And so they'll be like, remember when, like people are already referring it to it as the before times, which is such a weird,
Oh my god.
like, yeah. So I mean, I don't want to go into like having a coronavirus podcast, but I think nostalgia, there is something like that I wanted to just like, bring in there about that. Like people are going to be nostalgic for just a whole style of life before a global event,
Yeah, totally. And like going back to your, your bad nostalgia concept
Mhm.
in 10 years, like, are people going to be nostalgic in one way or another about lockdowns?
Yeah.
Like, it's not something we're going to have an answer for right now, but yeah, that is an interesting thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, and then so I think uh even just a whole genre as well is kind of like a nostalgic thing. Like you see people making art games these days. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
which is like art style as well as just like, a fundamental kind of what would you call it, constraint to a game that if it kind of, you see these like games popping up these days that are like 3D pixel art games, which I don't know how to feel about that either, because it's like kind of nostalgia, but kind of not. I don't know. It's just yeah, it's just weird.
3D pixel art game. I can't think of a 3D pixel art game.
Um, so there's been oh crap, I was watching a trailer for a game that's coming out soon. I can't remember what it's called. If it comes to me, I'll let you know. But yeah, it's basically like um it's as if the sprites are in a 3D world and that are moving around, interacting with what's the game? It's called Bravely Default. Do they do 3D pixel art? As you
Oh
sort of move
yeah.
around like a semi 3D
Oh
environment and
yeah,
stuff.
and like Octopath Traveler. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, all right. Yep. I can see it. So they've still got that like 2D combat kind of thing
yeah.
going on, but yeah, when you're exploring the world, that's totally on a 3D plane.
Yeah, but the character's still a flat image. Well, it's like kind of like Paper Mario even. It's like this character
Oh
is,
yeah.
for all intents and purposes, it's like a flat. Like you can't, when if you were to look at them on the side, you wouldn't see anything. But if you look at them on the front, you see the character.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's an interesting take because like I saw this image that contrasted like those old school sprites on old TVs versus new TVs,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
and they look a lot less detailed on new TVs,
yeah,
because like the old TVs, I'm not really sure how the technology works, to be honest, but like it had all these like points, and I
yeah,
think like the developers made use of the inferior technology, well, it's inferior now, to like create more detail in a picture. And
yeah.
I think that's pretty amazing, and like that's, I guess, some form of nostalgia when people are now making modern sprites that they're like, they can't actually do it in the same way. It's not going to look as good, so they need to like update it for modern technology.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking about nostalgia, there's people who actively try and seek out those old televisions. Like, there's a specific type of television that's like a flat screen, but still a rear projection one that
Mm.
has like a really specific high refresh rate. And there's all sorts of like, there's like, a specific brand. I was watching someone talk about it the other day, and they were showing it on YouTube, which really it sort of kills the whole purpose of it as well, because you really need to be in the same space as the television to truly appreciate the the
Yeah.
thing. That's such an interesting little thread on nostalgia. It's like something about the original is what is so valuable to the part of the nostalgia. There's like it's being able to recreate that memory that is it's almost like when you like record some audio and then you record that audio again and then you record it again and again and you get
Hmm.
like lossless layers or lossy layers of
Hmm.
like you just get crunched down depending on what microphone you're using, how
Yeah.
you're encoding the audio and all that sort of stuff. It's the
Yeah.
same with images. It's kind of the same with memories. Like you've got this like memory when it was encoded in your brain of like playing Mario 64 on the ground of your parents' living room or whatever, right? Like
Mm.
you've got that memory somewhere. I have my own, maybe we should talk about our memes at some stage, but I've got the memory of seeing Mario 64 for the first time at my uncle's place and him like running around the field like in front of the castle, and I think that's the memory. And I remember just thinking like, man, this is the most impressive video game I've ever seen. Like, this is so
Yeah.
cool. I want to play this. I want to play this right now. Get out of my way. I want to play this game. Um,
Oh, that's such a
and
great feeling
yeah,
when you see a game like that and you're just like, "Oh man, get this into my hands. That looks like
yeah,
so much fun."
yeah. And I think, Nintendo really plays on nostalgia. It's like one of their core tenets of like how they operate and like why they're so successful.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, so there's like this, the encoding of the memory of me seeing that and thinking that, and then playing the game as a child, and then probably playing it again as a young adult, and then playing it again somewhere in my late 20s, and now me looking at footage or whatever of Mario, or like doing a Mario speed run or something like that. Like
Mhm.
it's sort of morphed into this like very lossy version where I'm no longer necessarily enjoying the game for the original reasons that I was like, that I fell in love with the game, like the way that it looks and everything like that.
Yep.
Now it's more just like there's some like warmth. It's like you're sitting by the fire and the fire's really gone low, and there's like some warmth still there for you to just like sort of,
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, dude, I mean, I think that that's key to like
yeah.
finding nostalgia in video games, right? Like for me, I've got like a similar memory with Final Fantasy X, and like if I were to play that game again, it would not be for those original reasons. Like that game is an outdated train wreck. You know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like the
yeah.
voice acting is deplorable. It's
Is that
just
the one with Sora?
no.
Oh no, what am I thinking of? The one with the ball game,
Oh,
Blitzball?
Blitzball. Yeah, that's Final Fantasy X.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
got Blitzball and it's got that infamous laughing scene. When
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
my god, yeah, and just like there's just heaps of shit like that in that game, and that game is massive.
mm,
Um, like I, it's just that classic JRPG, 100 hours. Like all the games of that time just had to be that long if they were in that genre. Um, and like if I were to go back and play that now, man, I would not be playing it for like the gameplay or the story or the script or the graphics or any of the things that I initially got out of that game. Like
mm,
I'd be going and playing it so that I could get in touch with that whimsy again,
mm-hmm.
that charcoal warmth that you're talking about.
The charcoal warmth. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
great. That's a great term for it.
And like there are games that like Mario 64 is such a good example of a game you can go back and play because like
Mm-hmm,
I gotta be honest, I don't really have any desire to go back and play Final Fantasy X despite
mm-hmm,
its importance in my earlier years. And like you go even further to the other side of the spectrum with the game like GoldenEye 64, right? Like the nostalgia
mm.
for me is huge for that game, but that game is just almost unplayable. Like
Yeah,
it's very, very bad.
yeah. The charcoal warmth is gone almost. It's because of just the form factor.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And like the way you aim, like it's just too outdated to be able to enjoy despite the charcoal warmth that you're searching for.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think there's certain games that have come along even recently that I feel like are going to be nostalgic going forwards. Like I think Death Stranding, I'll probably play that again in like 10, 15 years and be like,
Ooh,
hell yeah.
that's yeah,
Yeah.
that's an interesting call because
Yeah.
yeah, there are definitely these games that stick out like Death Stranding and like Mario Kart on the Wii. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
um, and it's just like, for me, like, I don't think these games would ever kind of make a top 10 list for me, but they'd always be an honorable mention. Like
Yeah.
if I got the idea to play one of those games in my head, I'd be like, oh yeah, no, I could get into that.
Yeah. How did you play Banjo-Kazooie when you replayed it? Was it just on like an emulator or something?
Nah, so like, I've got an Xbone and there's a Rareware collection.
Oh,
Um,
right, right.
and there was this sale and I got it for like $4, and
Oh, hell yeah.
it's got Banjo and Conkers and all those games on there.
Oh wow,
Battletoads, like it's got like 20 or 30 games. Um,
that's sick.
and yeah, it was real nice to go back and play Banjo. And I was just amazed at how well it holds up. Like the controls feel real good. Oh man, the adaptive music in that game,
Mm.
like the overworld theme is like a take on the Teddy Bears Go to Picnic or whatever
Oh yeah,
that
yep,
that old tune is.
yep.
And like it's playing with different instruments, like you got the xylophone and then you go underwater and it's like a marimba, and it was real cool, and it did a lot of things that I was like, man, no wonder I was having such a blast as a kid. Like this game is still good now.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to go back and play it again. I remember attempting to play it again a couple times, just on an emulator, but there's something about having like, an official report or whatever, like Nintendo re-releasing a game on their online service that is a little bit more official feeling than the old emulator version.
Yeah, well, I think emulation is so important for like maintaining the history of video games,
Yeah.
because like
Oh, God.
companies like go out of business, and so they're not going to be remastering anything they created 30 years ago, but like having just that kind of complete library of video games accessible for free and sometimes illegally on the internet, I think is really important.
Totally. That's a whole other topic as well. The history and preservation of video games. I'm
Mm,
gonna write that down just
yeah.
because the third guest in our podcast, my keyboard, has appeared, and the fourth guest is my very icy cup of water that likes to clink around. Yeah, that is maybe not a whole topic, but something that's worth going into at some stage. But yeah, maybe it also. I know people that have like built these computers uh, that are specifically designed to be used to like go back and play every old game ever made.
Oh,
Like they've
really?
got like they've got like proper emulators set up for all of the old games, like all of the ROMs of all of the games. Like they spend years of their life like building these machines that aren't used for anything other than playing old games, and like they'll have like an arcade stick and the buttons attached to either built into it, like with some like way that they built the machine, like there's like in the wood in the MDF they'll like build it in
Hmm.
a keyboard and mouse in there and like a joystick, and like for fighting games there'll be like another thing that you pull out. Like it's really, people go really full on like hobbyist on this thing.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think there's some people out there that are just doing it naturally because they're interested in it, but
Hmm.
I think there really needs to be, like a museum style effort to preserve um a lot of this stuff that is just going to get lost to server death. There's like
Yeah.
heaps of games out there these days that are like online only or whatever, and they're being stored on servers or on devs hard drives, like there's kind of
Mm,
only two places you can get them.
yeah.
And when Amazon web servers go down, which may be at the heat death of the universe, I don't know, it would still be nice. It would still be nice to be able to play, or for the aliens who, run through our dust wreckage to be able to have some way to recover and play these games.
Yeah. Yeah, the only like the last remnants of human civilization is ET for the NES.
Yes, yeah. It's the only thing that survived because it was under, 1,000 different copies of ET, and it's all made out of like hard silicon. It takes thousands of years to decompose.
Oh my
The
god.
irony. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a, oh man. I have a friend, Laura, shout out to Laura, who we always end up talking about shit like this. It's like end of the world style stuff and aliens, and and like we go deep on like, well, what if, the aliens like they're so beyond our comprehension of like what a human life looks like, and how it's sort of like the analogy that I like to use is like teaching an ant how to use Instagram. Like there's no point in even like considering the fact that they may find our planet because they, they're like they're the Instagram in the example of that analogy.
I mean, I think that's great stuff to talk through, because I think when you're talking about aliens or gods or anything like otherworldly or beyond celestial, it's just like the creativity kind of has no ceiling.
Yeah, it's
Because
so
it's
good. You just let your mind just like fucking explode on it, man. Yeah, it's great.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like there was a little bit of that kind of creative whimsy in The Artful Escape for me.
Yeah,
Like
cool.
meeting the omnipotent aliens that were also like super chill, like
Yeah.
otherworldly designs. Like, yeah, I'm really into all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I can't remember her name, but she's like, I met God once. He was playing pinball. Yeah, that style
Yeah,
thing. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
I recently read Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett,
Hell yeah.
and it's I think it's like nearly it's over 30 years old now, and it just tells the story of the birth of the Antichrist, and
Oh wow.
this impending battle between heaven and hell, and it's at the forefront of these two characters. It's like a demon and an angel,
Hmm.
and like it's just so funny because they talk about the end of the world and like all these kind of cataclysmic parts of history, just super nonchalant, like they're just shooting the shit, and it's just like that kind of humor, like God playing pinball, like that.
Yep.
That's where it's at.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's very humbling. Yeah, so anyway, nostalgia. The something that I did also want to bring up, and this is a bit of a hard turn, but we're going back to my press X to pontificate about the state of video games and how they're built and financially like that kind of side of things.
Hmm.
Do you think nostalgia has like there's obviously money to be made in nostalgia, right?
Oh, bro. Yeah, I think I know where you're going with this. I'm excited, but go on.
So I mean, like I was saying before with like Nintendo, right? Like Mario as a character is like kind of almost like a fundamentally nostalgic relic, right? Like the
Hmm.
only reason that I think, well, maybe not the only reason, but a huge part of the reason that we still see Mario games getting built today, or even Mario shoved into other games like Mario and Sonic at the Olympics or
Mm.
whatever it is, Mario movies getting made still, like, oh my god, is because there's some part of a whole heap of people's collective past that they have as Mario as like a nostalgic part of their life, right? Like they
Right,
remember
right.
playing Super Mario 2 or 3 or whatever at home.
Yeah, I
And
mean, like Mario's a good example, but
yeah,
let's talk about one of the most lucrative IPs in history that has everyone in nostalgia shackles, which is Pokemon.
Pokemon? Yeah.
I
I knew
mean,
you were going there.
oh my god, like people have Stockholm syndrome with that game. It's been exactly the same for like 25 years, although there
Yeah.
has been that new game, Arceus, or
Yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
But apart from that game, it's been exactly the same. It's just been making billions and billions of dollars for fucking ages,
Yeah.
and it's just the same shit every single
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And like, I was into it. Like I would buy the new generation of Pokemon,
Yeah.
and like up until a couple of years ago when like Sword and Shield came out,
Yeah.
and I bought like one of those, and I finished it in a week, and I was like, this has not impacted my life in any way. Nothing has
Yeah.
changed. This game has no opinions. I
Has
I
nothing to say.
it has nothing to say. I'm supporting a company that is just like abusing its faithful customers because they
Yeah.
love this franchise and they love the cute little dudes, and they don't give a shit. They're just like, we make like whatever it is. I mean, I'm sure it's obscene, like $1 billion in profits every year, probably more. and we've got our team of 20 people making this annual game.
Yeah.
And it's just like, that's not good enough. I feel like I just
No.
got to this point. I'm like, man, I'm just not buying Pokemon games anymore until they produce something that makes me want to play again, and that isn't
Yep.
just, like, it's like manipulating me because they know I had like a Pikachu following me around in yellow or something, and
Yeah.
they know how
Put that shit
sweet
in the game.
the Danishes were when I was 8 years old, and the sunshine, and like,
The smell of your grandmother's house.
Oh, dude, exactly. They know that
Yeah.
shit, and they're manipulating me. It's like an abusive relationship, but with a giant conglomerate.
Yeah.
And like when I played Pokemon Sword, I like, my head like snapped out of the bubble, and I was like, oh my god, it was like being ripped out from the plugs of the Matrix.
Oh yeah. Neo just like gasping for air. That's a really good point. Yeah, the whole Pokemon franchise is, I think it is the most successful media franchise of all time.
Right.
It's above everything. It's above Harry Potter, it's above Star Wars, like it's just absurd, the reach and the money that this company has, or this property has made for this company. It's kind of a weird black box, right? Like you say, like that this game's made by like 20 people, and it seems that way, like there's not, even with Arceus, it was like an open world, a bit of a remix on it, but, and this is not to be cruel to the developers or anything like that, but that game looked like garbage. Like visually, it's not even last generation. It's like 4 generations ago. Like the tiling textures and the weird pop in and like the weird AI and like 4 animations per Pokemon. And it's like, okay, so many companies have done better on this with like not even a 10th of the budget this game has available to it.
Yeah. But it's funny, right? Because like, if we sit here and talk about the things we like in video games, I reckon graphics would rank really, really low for both of us. Like art style would be high, but like graphics, like it just doesn't really matter that much depending on like what else is going on with the core gameplay. But you see that Arceus game for like 5 seconds and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like that game, that looks bad. And
Yeah,
like forget the era. Like if it was 10 years ago, it looks bad. If it was 15 years ago, like it just doesn't. It's weird. It's like this combination of both bad graphics and an uninspired art style.
Totally. Yeah, it's just maybe that's part of it as well, right? It's the most successful franchise, and it's, as a result, there's no way for it to. Oh, fuck that! There is a way for it to be successful. I don't know what I'm talking about. Like it's just like, it's so disappointing because you see like, beautiful games with incredible art style and art direction and like real talent, like real people who really care about something that's getting made, not just the fact that it's going to be played by people who are nostalgic for it, but making something that they care deeply about.
Yeah.
And then you hold that up against the newest Pokemon game, and it's like, sure, people enjoyed the newest Pokemon game. Like, I have no problem with people that enjoy the franchise. That's fine. Go enjoy the franchise, okay? I'm not saying don't enjoy the franchise. I'm just saying this game and this whole franchise is bereft. Like I've said, it's got nothing to say. There's nothing there, really.
Yeah.
Like, your time is probably better spent, but spend your time however you want. It's probably better spent going outside. Touch that grass, baby.
Yeah, but it's like, it's one of those things where I don't know if saying video game companies is right, but like video game publishers and marketing teams understand that engaging children is where the money is.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, for us, we can look back through the history of Pokemon and just be like, man, nothing has changed. This is not good enough. Like, we understand like the profits of the company, and like we have this holistic picture of the lack of effort that they're
Yeah.
putting into these video
Yeah.
games. Whereas like the new kid on the block who's 8 years old, and like he gets a Switch and Pokemon whatever they're up to from grandma, like
Yeah.
man, that kid is like totally captivated, and
Yeah.
he doesn't know there were 40 games before that looked exactly the same and played exactly the same, but like he doesn't care, you know.
Yeah.
Like they're just they're getting their tentacles in early, and there's been no sign from consumers that this isn't working.
Yeah.
Everyone just buys Pokemon games, new generations, and like even if everyone our age or from our generation decided to like boycott Pokemon, like I wonder what kind of impact would that have? Would it have
Mm.
a perceptible impact at all?
No,
Or
at this point it's too late. Yeah.
yeah, right. It's like
Yeah,
the
there's
the
no, everyone could stop playing Pokemon games tomorrow, and it wouldn't do anything. They'd still release another game that's the exact same.
yeah.
And then if no one bought that, it wouldn't matter. They would just do the same thing again next year. There's no. I don't. I really think at this point it's just on autopilot. Like it's just getting the same games, just literally going through the intestine and getting shit out at the bottom onto the shelves every year.
Yeah.
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
And like this is maybe this is a bad opinion. Like I had this a little while ago. I tweeted about it. I think I deleted the tweet, but it was like at the peak of when Among Us was really popular. Do you remember that game?
Yeah, yeah. I never played it, but
Yeah.
I saw it. It
Yeah.
looked kind of fun, to be honest.
Yeah. It was cool, right? Like it had this whole like really simplistic, like pared back who done it thing, right? Where like someone on the ship would be the imposter, or someone's on the ship would be the imposter, and then you have to like
Yeah.
find out who, and it was like a social game.
Yeah,
And
well,
it
like
came out at a time when
we played that game at parties, right?
Yeah.
Like as werewolf.
That's right.
It was just like werewolf with a video game skin.
Pretty much. But it had this huge cultural impact. Like people, and maybe this is like the counter argument to what I'm about to say, right? Is like the recognition of the main character in Among Us is so ubiquitous, and it's like you see it everywhere. It's almost like, it's like when people start seeing like Jesus Christ in a loaf of bread or whatever, or like Mary Magdalene. It's that thing. It's like,
right.
this lima bean kind of looks like the leader. It's like that.
Right. So like it's part of this like video game iconography now.
Yeah. But at the time when it was really successful, I was, on my little platform saying like, it's great that this game is seeing such success, and it's like a small team or whatever, and they're doing really good things, and I can tell that they really care about the game, and that they're going to make progress with it. But I wish it looked better. Like I wish there was some artistic vision happening here. It doesn't have to be.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like, like hyper real 3D violent whatever, anything like that. It just needs to have some design, like some artist that like, no, that's cruel. It's some direction, some true art direction, right? Like really what we're looking at here could be like, it's like scribblish, there's nothing really going on there. It's so flat.
Yeah.
And I think like the counter argument is what I just made, is that it's so recognizable, and like
like I definitely
simplicity.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, but I gotta say I disagree. Like I think what makes that game attractive has nothing to do with the art style or the way it looks. And it's a similar thing with Slay the Spire. Like
that game looks like garbage.
Look, I think the designs are really fun, but I think that the art style leaves a lot to be desired. But that doesn't detract from it at all. Like I've got over 200 hours in that game. It's an amazing game, and like its art style is enough in that, you know, I know where the outline of the character is, and I know, you know, like things are easy for me to understand visually. And I think
Mm,
in a game like Slay the Spire, a game like Among Us, that's all I'm really asking for, you know.
yeah.
And it's still a really fun experience despite you know, the lack of proficiency in those areas. But that's not to say like those games couldn't be improved by
Right.
like getting you know, better direction around those type of things. You know, you take a game that has really good direction like Hades, and you're like, man, I can't imagine that game with bad art direction because it's super giant. But like, if you could imagine for a second that it did have bad art direction, like I don't think it would make it any less fun.
True.
But
Yes.
just, you know, since it does have just incredible art direction, that it's one of my favorite games of all time. You know,
Yeah.
like that kind of attitude that you talk about, how like um, people really care about the game. For me, like when a team, you know, Among Us was like, I'm assuming that's like a new studio or a new team or something, and they've just like had a hit on their hands, and that's fantastic. But
Yeah.
Supergiant have been around for a while, and like, you know, for the longest time, I feel like art direction has been a real priority for them,
Yeah.
and the mechanics and the gameplay, like that almost feels like it was a step behind the art direction in those games.
Yeah.
Like you take Pyre, the game
Yeah.
before Hades, and like 100% art direction was way more important than like the
Yeah.
gameplay. Like the story was way more important, and it's just like Hades reached this zenith where everything came together just to deliver this complete experience. And like I can understand you not liking the game, but just for
Yeah.
me objectively, it's like, man, this, you know, they've put a lot of effort into just about every aspect of the game that there is.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. I think you made a lot of great points there. It's almost like a little bit of a cranky old man thing, you know. Like it's like I wish Pokemon, um, due to the virtue of the fact that it's so widely consumed and consumed by young folk, I wish that it had some more artistic integrity, so that as you know, these vast swaths of people consuming it and enjoying it, and you know, and having it as part of their nostalgic experience, so that they are able to both enjoy it for longer, right? Like if you're able to
Mm.
like come back and play it again, and it kind of still like holds up, you know, with like Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah.
Um, and also so that it's like good soup, you know? It's like that's a bad example, but it's like what am I trying to say? I'm trying to find like a food analogy here, you know? Like pizza is fine. It's not much to look at, but it's like it's really good, right? Like you can eat a hearty pizza and that shit tastes good. It's cheap, it's replicatable. Most places can do good pizza, right? It's fine.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
And that's like your Pokemon and Among Us and whatever, right? Like that's pizza is those games. But then you've
Bro,
got
you're
like,
starting a war with pizza lovers. There are a lot of
yeah, I
pizza
know.
lovers out here.
I love pizza as well. Don't get me wrong, but it's just trash food. All right, it goes in the bin. You eat it, it's good. Um, you eat it out of the bin. That's Pokemon. That's literally Pokemon. You eat Pokemon out of the bin. That's. Are you still
Oh my
there?
god, yeah, no,
Okay, you're
I'm
just
with
losing
you.
it. Okay. But then you've got like, you know, Hades, right? Like Hades is kind of like the Umbertos, or like a high quality restaurant that's like,
The Umbertos of video games.
yeah, you with me?
Yeah, no, like I completely agree, and
Yeah.
it's the same kind of analogy. Um, Ego Raptor all those years ago made with his first sequelitis episode on Castlevania,
Yep.
right? Like he talked through the mechanics of Castlevania and how like the implementation of certain things like jumping and like slapping things with your whip have this delay, and there's this theme of patience and taking your time and like really understanding what you're doing. Whereas in the later entries in the franchise, it was just all about leveling up 40 million times and doing all these things and like just rushing through everything. And his analogy was like, you know, going to a fine dining meal and like capping it off with a beautiful dessert, which was that first Castlevania verse, just like sitting there and eating like a jumbo packet of chips and smashing it down.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same thing, right? Like,
right.
There's like it stands up, right? Like there's a reason that people like pizza, or there's a reason that they like smashing down like Pop-Tarts and Coke. Like it's good, right? There's nothing bad about it, but it's just I wish that because this is so successful that it had at least some elements of integrity behind its art direction, right? Like imagine how great it would be to be like a game like Pokemon. And I feel like I'm sort of sledging the artists here a little bit. Like the designs, there's some still really great designs, right? It's just that Arceus looks like it was like scraped off the bottom of, you know, the toilet floor.
Yeah.
But imagine if it wasn't, you know, like what if Arceus actually had a color palette, right? What if Arceus
other than green and brown?
Yeah, like if someone for 4 months of their life like thought, okay, we're gonna really set this first area's color palette up and like have it work
for 4 months of their life.
Yeah. I'm not asking much out of Nintendo's hip pocket here, right? Like I feel like that's someone's salary 4 months. That's not that much. They can afford 4 months. They can pay a colorist.
Yeah. This is We Hate Pokemon, the podcast. Do you like Pokemon? We hate you. Did you work on Pokemon? We hate you.
I sympathize big time with the artists and animators and programmers that work on Pokemon games. There's a bit of like a brothers in battle feeling that you get, because you know that that they have crazy turnarounds and that they probably have an awful budget and that they're hiring a lot of juniors because their turnaround's terrible. You know, like,
yeah.
I'm sure there's people at these companies that genuinely are trying their best to make a good Pokemon game every time. It's just not possible sometimes. Like,
it's and like
world is.
I get that the like overarching theme you're going for is integrity, and like again, that's like a huge issue and topic in itself within the corporate world, you know, because, you know, Pokemon is a brand fronted by a company at the end of the day. And like asking for integrity from companies is like, you know, it feels basic, and it's a real shame that, you know, that isn't kind of the default position of a lot of companies, but it's just like the sad world we live in, to be honest. Like I don't see it anytime soon where you know the I don't know what they call the company that creates Pokemon, but I can't see a future where, you know, they pull back a release and they're like, you know what, we're not going to make a Pokemon game this year. We're going to double down on what a Pokemon game should be and what it might look like in the future. You know, I can't see that happening because they're going to lose so much revenue by not publishing a Pokemon game that year. So it's just it's just kind of a sour situation for the consumer, but not for the kid who is brand new to the world and is like, fuck yeah, there's 10,000 Pokemon now. Like, put it in my veins.
Yeah, I know, but don't you want to feed your kid some Umbertos and not some trash from the floor? Like,
oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I'm saying. Yeah. That's where the grumpy old man part comes in, you know. That's all that is. I agree though. I think it's fine. It's fine that this is the first Pokemon thing that a kid might play, and they might enjoy it, and that's fine. I like that.
so segue.
Yeah.
And I hope your answer isn't Pokemon, but what is the most nostalgic video game for you?
Probably it's probably a toss up between, man, actually I don't know. Mario 64 is up there for sure. We mentioned that before.
Mm.
And Zelda Ocarina of Time is super nostalgic. The minute that I put this like ties into the music a little bit. The minute that I hear that intro music with the piano and you hear the horse's hoofs like as they go along that ridge, like I can see it so clearly on my mind. And then like
Right.
the title fades in over like 6 seconds. It's like I can see it, man. So yeah, maybe it's Ocarina of Time for that, just because it's so clear in my mind.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I think that might be a pretty common answer for
yeah,
our generation.
yeah. Um, it's interesting as well that Zelda has had, you know, it's like had its ups and downs for sure. That series. Oh my god.
Yeah, well, I'd love to do a whole episode on Zelda because
Yep.
I don't get Zelda. I've
Yep.
I've I've played quite a few Zelda games and I've never finished one. I
Yep.
like I get, usually 10 hours in and I'm just like, why am I playing this? Like it's
Yeah.
just
Fair enough.
it's not I'm not into it. And like you know, I can understand why people are into it, but for me it's a bit frustrating because it's the kind of game that on paper that I love. It's like a completely original world with wacky, bizarre characters and like adventure hijinks, and
Mm-hmm.
on paper it's everything I should like. But I've just never come across a Zelda game where I'm like, this is fun to play. I want to see how the story unfolds, like
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, like I think Zelda's probably a good example of a video game franchise that hasn't really relied on nostalgia that heavily, having not played, you know, all of the games to their completion. So maybe that isn't true, but from what I've seen,
Yeah.
the entries vary pretty wildly.
Yeah. Look, there's similarities, right? Like you're a prince, you're Link, and you got to rescue the princess. That's it, right?
Yeah, I
Rescue
mean,
the princess, bing bang boom, you're done. It's just what
yeah,
happens in between. It's like it's the bread. The bread is Link, and the other part of the bread is Princess Zelda, and the meat inside the sandwich and the salad is all the cool stuff they throw in the middle. Like,
yeah. I
is
feel,
it like Link Between Worlds, and you've got like the painting, and you can move between worlds? Like that's pretty novel and cool. Or is it
mm,
like Ocarina of Time, and it's all about like the time mechanics, and you can become an adult, and whoa, that's kind of freaky. Or is it like Majora's Mask? There's like 25 different masks in the game, and they all have different puzzles and purposes and side stories. And like I feel like Majora's Mask was the one of the only Zelda games to actually have a story, like stories in there, like quests that
right.
you can follow. Like Ocarina has some, but they're so like, oh man, the witch needs a potion. Like that's kind of the extent of it. Whereas
Yeah.
Majora's Mask is like this person is aware of the fact they're gonna die in 3 days, and you need to like help them come to terms with that by delivering things for them or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a layer there that's quite nice.
Yeah, of all the Zelda games I've seen, I haven't played Majora Mask, but that one piqued
Ooh,
my interest the most because it just seems so weird. Like,
yeah,
especially the way the game plays out, and like you just play the same day, but you
yeah,
do different things and see different stories unfold. Like, as a storytelling device, that's awesome. That's so
yeah.
original. Like, there are a few games where you just play the same day in the same place, and you just have so many different options that there's a
Mm,
there's a whole game there waiting
yeah.
for you to kind of unlock before the day ends.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's another one like cool contender for speedrunners, right? Like there's
Oh yeah.
such an optimized way to do things in that game that isn't immediately apparent. Uh,
Mm.
yeah, it's awesome, dude. Maybe if we ever do a complimentary thing for people to consume alongside this podcast, we should have like a YouTube series where we play through Majora's Mask.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
That'd be real fun.
Um. So yeah, the Zelda for me. How about for you?
Um, well, I was gonna go a different route actually, and like
Mm.
go for something nostalgic that was a bit more recent than when I was a kid. But I think for me, one of the most nostalgic games is Tetris. So,
Oh.
so like in 2010 or 2011, in Melbourne, we just had this brutally hot summer, and Joe and I lived together,
Uh,
and it was just this summer of Tetris. We
yeah.
had this Nintendo 64, and I imagine, I assume it was yours. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah, it was mine.
And we had this Tetris game, and like we would just put the air conditioning on. We would have like a laundry sink full of Coronas,
Yeah.
and we just played Tetris all summer. and and like it's the kind of game where it doesn't matter if you take, a week gap, a month gap, a year gap. Like I just remember like the techniques we developed and how to play it. And whenever I hear that, like, Russian dancing song that's like, dun, 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 and
Yeah.
like I'm just like, oh my god, that was such a good summer. Like,
Yeah.
we didn't go outside at all. We just
Yeah.
stayed in playing Tetris. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just I think I'll just forever kind of love Tetris for that time.
Yeah, that's an incredible memory. I remember it super fondly as well. The seem to remember just like getting out of bed one day and already you and Damo were like sitting in front of the TV like battling Tetris, like it's 10 a.m. in the morning or something and like the Tetris was already popping off. Like and the vision of the laundry sink full of Coronas is like it felt like a bottomless pit of Coronas that just like would never run out. Like there's something that's super nostalgic about that, right? Where it's like a warped perception of the reality. Like
Yeah.
I'm sure we did run out of Coronas eventually, but it felt like we would never run out.
Yeah, and like that's what I tried to think about when you said let's talk about nostalgia, because I thought about Tetris and then I thought about the Coronas, and I was like, were we just not actually drinking that much? Did they only last 3 days and we think they lasted 3 months? Like,
Yeah,
what
yeah.
is going on with our interpretation of that memory?
Yeah. Yeah, dude. That we had a bunch of great memes at that. Like when I look back on the doc at the memes, yeah, playing Super Meat Boy, like getting you into the video games through Super Meat Boy again. That
Oh
was fucking
man.
sick. The silky precision of the crab comes up every now and then in my mind, and I'm like, yeah, that was a good
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Well, like I just had a huge break from video games. Like I had a PS2 and like played Final Fantasy X,
Yeah,
and then I took like, I don't know, a 6 year break where I just didn't
yeah,
play any video games, and then you moved in, and like I think the the turning point for me was when you brought home Dead Space 2, and you were
yeah.
like, I'm going to play this new video game. And I was like, yeah, cool, I'll watch you. And the opening for that game is incredible. And I was just like, whoa, video games are like this now. This is amazing. And like, it just kickstarted my re entry and like deep dive into the abyss of video games that I'd missed over the years.
Yeah, yeah. The Dark Space was one of those games where it came out at a time similar to a lot of it came out at a time when the intro, like the first 10 minutes of playtime in the video game, was super crucial. Like they
Mm,
really, I mean, people still do care about that a lot, especially mobile games these days. But
not
the
fucking
first,
From Software though.
no, they don't give a
Holy
fuck.
shit! Like Phoebe started playing, and
Yeah,
I've been watching her. Dude, the first hour of that game is terrible.
yeah,
It
it doesn't make
like
any sense.
it gives you like 40 information screens every time you like pick up an item or
Yep,
click on a dude. Or I was just like, holy shit! Seeing
yeah,
this from an objective perspective, they do not give a shit about your experience.
no, they don't. And
Yeah.
I was watching there was a video someone put up recently where like they were going into the first battle with Godric,
Oh
and
yeah.
they had like equipped bow, but they hadn't ever actually, clicked over to fully equip the bow.
Mm-hmm.
And so when they did that in the middle of the boss fight, Godric was about to hit them with a big hit,
Mm.
and they like they panicked obviously, and they pressed their bow button, and an information screen popped up and froze the game and told them about how to use a bow.
No. Oh
And I
my
was like, oh
god.
god, just way to
Yeah.
ruin the entire moment.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, there's Deathloop did that as well. I can't remember if I think I was telling you about Deathloop, but you never played it. But yeah, that game had a real bad case of the information screens.
Mm.
It's just such a clumsy. I mean, sometimes you got to do it because there's no other way to tell the player like this is what you need to know. But yeah, it's especially in Deathloop, dude. It was just like right before you're about to stealth kill someone. You know, like it's like I don't think it's like a super complex thing in first person shooters. You like turn a character's back to you and you have them whistling a tune or whatever. You know, like they're unaware of you. They tell you how to crouch. That's all you need to know. We don't need to know you got to equip the knife and stab the medicine when the prompt shows up. Like the
Yeah.
prompt shows up and you know like yeah. Anyway, like in Deathloop, as you approach the guy, it's like stealth. This is how stealth works. And then you like ready your weapon, and it's like you're holding your weapon. Like get ready to stab, and then you're like about to stab the guy, and it's like stealth damage does more damage or whatever. You know, like
Mega Man,
like three
Mega Man.
pop-ups. Yeah, exactly. The Mega Man thing. Go away. Let me play the game.
Yeah.
And yeah, the Elden Ring does that a little bit as well, for sure. In the first hour, it's just like info heavy.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, Phoebe was just like, I'm not reading any of this because I don't need it right now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just assuming that when I do need it, I'll be able to figure it out. And
Yeah.
it's just like that, man, that's exactly right. Like, I, it's so weird when, you know, a game like Elden Ring comes out and they get so much right. And like by right, I mean they get it as right as you can possibly get it. And then there's just a bunch of kindergarten shit in there. And you're
Yeah.
like, man, the polarity between what you've done well and what you've failed to do is extreme.
Yeah. Yeah, we got to go over that when we do our spoiler cast. Yeah, but the um maybe a solution would be for in Elden Ring's case is so we're in place of the screen popping up and freezing the game and giving you information. It has like a little UI icon down the bottom that's like an eye or something, and a little bit of text saying, you know, bow and arrows, and like it just fades away, and then you know that if you go into the menu and find like the tutorial section or whatever, you'll be able to find that pop up that you know that will tell you about how bow and arrows work.
Yeah, well, I wonder, you know, like what kind of testing or audience interaction stuff they did to decide to implement those screens
Yeah,
because their other games don't have those screens. You know,
yeah,
the other games you start off and there's a bunch of messages that are like R1 is light attack, R2 is heavy attack.
yeah. They'll
And you
tell you
don't,
with the messages.
yeah, and like you don't even have to click those. You can just start the game and mash buttons and figure it out. But like none of them tell you about like you know, speaking to blacksmiths and upgrading weapons. Like you've just got to figure that out. Like
Yeah,
you pick up a piece of titanite and read the description and it's like can be used to upgrade weapons and you're like, "Oh,
yeah,
you know, there it is."
yeah.
Like I
There it
didn't
is.
I got to figure that out on my own and it was part of the gameplay that I read the item description. Like it
Yeah,
didn't stop me from, you know, doing whatever I was doing to say this upgrades weapons when like, you know, in Elden Ring you pick up the first whatever it is stone and it's like you can use this to upgrade weapons and you're like great,
yeah,
so you go to upgrade it and you don't have enough and
yeah,
it's just like why did that screen exist?
yeah,
Like why
yeah.
it just yeah, I think it's very clunky.
Super clunky. The I was playing yesterday in the office. My boss was playing some Elden Ring on the PC at lunch, and
Oh yeah.
he was like at a vendor and he was trying to buy something, but he didn't have enough runes.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Oh, just use some of your rune shards or whatever they're called. You know, the things that you crush, like
Yeah.
soul things." And he was like, "What are those?" And I'm like, you probably got like 300 of them by now. You just haven't used them."
Yeah.
And then he was like, "Oh, those things. I've been selling those." And I'm like, "You've been selling? You sell those?"
Yeah.
So there you go. That's like a prime example of like you don't get the same value from selling them, right? Like they sell for like 100 each or something, right?
In previous games, in some of them, you actually do get the same value for selling them.
Maybe I'm wrong.
But it's obviously way less convenient because
Yes.
you get the same value by just using them wherever you are.
Yeah. Okay.
But
So
yeah,
yeah.
I don't know if that's the case for Elden Ring. But yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, God, bro, just finish that game so we can rant about it.
Yeah.
Because I'm so keen to rant about it.
Give me another 50 hours in 4 weeks and I'll be with you.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. Oh, well, I wonder, if in 10 years we're going to be nostalgic for this podcast. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. What a way to round it out, my guy. I do want to go over next week. You know what? Screw it. We'll talk about it in the doc and we'll figure it out. But we touched on a bunch of stuff in this chat that I reckon is really good episode fodder for next week, just as a little
a taste.
Little tasty surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, we'll see y'all next time. It's almost the weekend. Ba-bam.
Bam. Bye.
Bye.